In 24 BC, the empire was the undisputed master of the world. Its emperor, Augustus, was worshipped as a god. But in the blistering heat of the Nubian desert, a queen did the unthinkable. She didn't just fight him. She cut off his head, brought it home, and buried it under the entrance to her temple, so that every time her people entered, they walked on the face of the man who claimed to own the world. This is the true story of Amanirenas of Kush, the warrior queen Rome couldn't break. If you love the hidden side of history, hit that subscribe button and let's dive into the sand. To understand the rage of the queen, we must first understand the arrogance of the empire. The year is 25 BC. The dust has barely settled in Egypt. Mark Antony and Cleopatra are dead, their dynasty swallowed by the insatiable appetite of Rome. The legions now stand at the first cataract of the Nile, near modern-day Aswan. They look south, squinting into the heat haze, and they do not see a threat. They see a bank vault waiting to be cracked. They see the kingdom of Kush. For centuries, Kush had been a powerhouse of gold, iron, and trade, ruling from the royal city of Meroë. But to the Romans, they are merely the next conquest. The Roman prefect of Egypt, Aelius Gallus, is so confident in his supremacy that he makes a fatal military error. He strips the southern garrisons of their best legions. He marches them away across the Red Sea, chasing rumors of riches in Arabia, leaving the southern border of the empire exposed. He assumes the barbarians to the south are too primitive to notice or too afraid to act. He is wrong. Watching from the high dunes of the Nubian desert is the Kandake, the queen mother, Amanirenas. She is not merely a figurehead, she is the absolute authority of Kush. She sees the Roman standards thinning. She watches the galleys sail away. She does not wait for Rome to come for her gold. She decides to come for their blood. Amanirenas issues the command. The drums of Meroë begin to beat, a deep rhythmic thunder that rolls up the Nile Valley. She assembles an army that stuns the ancient world, 30,000 warriors. They are not a disorganized rabble. They are disciplined infantry armed with iron-tipped spears, massive longbows, and axes. They move under the cover of the desert night, using the stars and the river to guide their silent march. In the early morning light, the Roman garrison at Syene wakes up not to the sunrise, but to a storm. The Kushites swarm the city walls like floodwaters. The few remaining Roman defenders, terrified and outnumbered, are swept aside by the sheer weight of the assault. Amanirenas leads the charge herself. Her forces capture the fortified towns of Syene, Elephantine, and the sacred island of Philae. The victory is absolute, but Amanirenas knows that defeating Rome requires more than killing soldiers. You must kill their symbols. In the center of Syene stands a pristine statue of Emperor Augustus. To the Romans, this is a sacred idol of their god-king. To Amanirenas, it is an idol of oppression. Her soldiers topple the bronze giant. It crashes into the dust with a heavy ring of hollow metal. With the city burning behind them and Roman prisoners in chains, the Kushites do not simply retreat. They hack the head off the statue of Augustus. Amanirenas holds the bronze head of the emperor in her hands. She looks into the lifeless metal eyes of the man who claims to be the Son of God, and she makes a decision that will echo through history. She will not melt it down for gold. She will take it back to Meroë as a trophy. The lioness has awakened, and she has taken the head of the dragon. But she knows. The rest of the beast is coming. News in the ancient world travels at the speed of a sail or a galloping horse. But the insult Amanirenas delivered to Rome traveled faster. It arrived with the force of a thunderclap. When word reached the Roman administration that the garrisons at Siena had been butchered, that the standards were gone, and that the emperor's face had been desecrated, the reaction was not panic. It was a cold, mechanical fury. Rome does not tolerate embarrassment. Rebellion is expected. Humiliation is punished with annihilation. The empire turns its gaze toward the Nile. The new prefect of Egypt, Gaius Petronius, is a man carved from the same stone as the Republic's hardest generals. He is not a politician. He is a career soldier. He understands the logistics of death. He is given a clear directive. Go south, retrieve the standards, restore the honor of Augustus, burn Kush to the ground. Petronius does not gather a rabble. He summons the legions. 10,000 infantrymen, 800 heavy cavalry. These are the elite. These are men who have marched across Gaul, who have broken the phalanxes of the East. They are a machine designed for one purpose: total war. Imagine the sound of 10,000 hobnailed sandals hitting the stone roads of Egypt in unison. It is a rhythmic grinding that shakes the earth. They move like a singular organism, clad in larica hamata, chainmail armor, and carrying the scutum, the curved rectangular shield that turns men into a mobile fortress. But as they march past the first cataract and cross the border into Nubia, they meet their first enemy. It is not the Kushites, it is the land itself. The heat of the Nubian desert is not merely hot, it is aggressive. It is a physical weight. The temperature soars well past 110 degrees. For a Roman legionnaire carrying 60 pounds of equipment, armor, weapons, rations, entrenching tools, every step is a battle against heat stroke. The air shimmers. The horizon dances. The sand gets everywhere, under eyelids, inside sandals, grinding against skin until it is raw. Yet they march. The discipline of Rome is terrifying because it ignores human suffering. They march in perfect formation, a snake of iron slithering up the banks of the Nile, fueled by water and hatred. Scouts report back to Petronius. The Kushite army is waiting. Amanirenas has not fled into the deep desert. She has drawn a line in the sand at Selchis, a strategic point along the river. She knows the Romans are coming, and she believes in the strength of her numbers. She has 30,000 warriors against their 10,000. 3-1. In any other era, in any other war, those odds are decisive. But Amanirenas is about to learn a brutal lesson in the difference between a warrior culture and a military-industrial complex. The two armies converge on the plains near Selkis. The visual contrast is stark. On one side, the Romans. A wall of uniform red and steel, silent, motionless, organized into a perfect grid. On the other, the Kushites. A sea of leopard skins, gold jewelry, and painted bodies. They are armed with 4-foot-long bows, heavy iron axes, and spears. They are loud, chanting, beating drums, calling upon the lion god Epidemic to feast on the invaders. The air creates a static charge of tension. The silence of the Romans is more unnerving than the roar of the Kushites. Then, the Roman cornu horns blast, a mournful, brassy cry that signals the advance. The battle begins, not with a clash of swords, but with a darkened sky. The Kushite archers, famous throughout the ancient world for their precision, loose a volley of arrows. These are arrows designed to pierce the thick hide of an elephant. They rain down on the Roman lines. But the Romans have a technology the Kushites have never truly faced: the testudo. At a shouted command, the front ranks lock their shields together. The men behind lift their shields over their heads. In seconds, the legion transforms into a tortoise of wood and leather. The Kushite arrows rattle harmlessly off the curved shields. The Romans do not stop. They keep walking. This is the psychological horror of fighting Rome. You hit them, and they do not bleed. They just keep coming. When the lines finally crash together, the tech gap becomes a butcher's bill. The Kushites fight with bravery that borders on madness. They fling themselves at the shield wall. But their shields are made of raw ox hide. They are light and maneuverable, perfect for desert skirmishes, but useless against the Roman gladius. The Roman short sword is a stabbing weapon. The legionnaire doesn't swing. He thrusts from behind the protection of his shield. It is efficient, ugly work. A punch to the face with the shield, a thrust to the gut with the sword. The front line of the Kushite army begins to disintegrate. The Roman machine is grinding them into the dust. Amanirenas is not watching from a distant hill. She is in the fray. This is the tradition of the Kandakes. She fights alongside her son, the Prince Akinidad. She wields a sword, shouting orders, rallying her flanks, trying to use her superior numbers to surround the Roman square. But the chaos of battle is blinding. Dust clouds choke the air. The screams of dying men and horses drown out all commands. And in this swirling vortex of violence, the history of Africa changes in a split second. A Roman projectile, perhaps a pilum thrown by a legionnaire, or a stray arrow fired by a mercenary archer, tears through the air. It finds the queen. It strikes Amanirenas directly in the face. The impact is sickening. The world goes black on one side. The pain is a white-hot explosion, a shock that drops her to her knees. Blood, dark and copious, pours down her face, blinding her remaining eye, soaking her royal garments. For a moment, the heart of the Kushite army stops. To see the queen fall is to see the nation fall. A ripple of panic spreads through the nearby troops. If the Kandake is dead, the war is over. The gods have abandoned them. In the Roman lines, a cheer begins to rise. They see the gold-clad leader go down. They smell victory. They surge forward, sensing the collapse. But Amanirenas does not die. Through a haze of agony that would render most humans unconscious, she finds a reserve of will that defies biology. She feels the warm blood on her cheek. She feels the ruin of her eye. And she feels the fear of her people. She grabs the arm of a guard and hauls herself upright. She is swaying, dizzy from shock. The pain is absolute, but she knows that if she is carried off the field now, her army breaks. If she retreats, Kush becomes a province of Rome. She refuses to leave. Historical accounts from the Greek geographer Strabo tell us what happens next, though they write it with a mixture of horror and awe. She does not hide the wound. She does not cover her face in shame. Field medics rush to her, priests with linen and herbs. In the middle of the screaming battlefield, with arrows still flying, they hastily pack the gruesome wound. They wrap a thick bandage around her head, covering the destroyed eye. The white linen instantly begins to stain red. Amanirenas takes her weapon back into her hand. She turns to her soldiers. She is now the one-eyed queen. The injury has transformed her. She is no longer just a monarch. She is a terrifying avatar of war. To her people, she has sacrificed a part of herself to the land, becoming something more than human. To the Romans, seeing this woman rise from the dead, bloodied but unbowed, screaming defiance at their legions, is deeply unsettling. She raises her sword and screams for the counterattack. The Kushites see her. They see the blood, they see the bandage, and they go berserk. The panic evaporates, replaced by a frenzy of protective rage. They throw themselves at the Romans with renewed violence, desperate to save their wounded mother. The Battle of Selches rages on for hours. The ground turns to mud with blood. Ultimately, the Roman discipline holds. The technological superiority of steel over bronze, of chainmail over skin, forces the Kushites to pull back. Petronius claims the field. He claims the victory. But he does not claim the queen. Amanirenas orchestrates a fighting retreat. She does not rout. She pulls her forces back, mile by bloody mile, deeper into the heat, deeper into the fortress of the desert. She has lost the battle. She has lost her eye. She has lost thousands of her best men. But as night falls over the carnage of Selkis, and the Romans tend to their own dead, a realization settles over General Petronius. He looks at the vast, empty darkness of the south. He defeated them. He broke their line. He took their ground. But they did not surrender. The queen is still out there, and she is leading them further into a land where Roman tactics mean nothing, and where the sun burns hotter than any forge. Back in her camp, amidst the groans of the wounded, Amanirenas sits, the The pain is a constant throbbing drumbeat in her skull. She touches the bandage. The vision on her right side is gone forever. A lesser ruler would sue for peace. A lesser ruler would offer gold to make the legions stop. Amanirenas stands up. She looks at the map of her kingdom. She realizes that she cannot beat Rome in a straight line. She cannot beat them shield against shield. So she will not fight them like a Roman. She will fight them like the desert. She will let them come. She will let them march until their boots rot and their tongues swell. She will lure them to the holy city of Napata, and she will make them pay for every inch of sand with a gallon of Roman blood. The eye was the down payment. The war has only just begun. The Battle of Seleucus was a tactical victory for Rome, but a strategic nightmare. General Petronius has won the field, but he has not won the war. He stands amidst the carnage, wiping Kushite blood from his gladius, and looks south. The map tells him that Meroë, the royal capital where the queen sits, is still hundreds of miles away. Between him and his prize lies a gauntlet of granite rocks, treacherous cataracts, and a sun that does not warm. It devours. Petronius makes the decision that has doomed empires for millennia. He decides to push on. He believes that if he can just reach the capital, if he can just burn their palaces, the will of the African queen will shatter. He orders the march to continue. The Roman column moves deeper into Kush, and now the land begins to fight them. The terrain changes. The comforting flat banks of the lower Nile give way to jagged black rocks and shifting dunes. The temperature climbs. In the middle of the day, the metal of the Roman armor becomes hot enough to blister skin. The legionnaires, men from Italy, Gaul, and Greece, begin to suffocate. They are walking into a furnace. But the heat is the least of their problems. Amanirenas has survived the arrow to her eye. The wound has been cauterized, bandaged, and sealed, but the pain has clarified her mind. She knows she cannot beat the heavy infantry in a shield wall collision. So, she initiates a new strategy. Scorched earth. As the Romans advance, they find the villages empty. The granaries are swept clean. The wells are filled with sand or poisoned with the carcasses of animals. There is no food to forage. There is no water to steal. The Kushite army has become a ghost. They strike at the rear guard in the dead of night, killing a dozen men, then vanishing into the dunes before the Romans can form ranks. They are bleeding the empire drop by drop. Weeks turn into a month. The Roman supply lines are stretched to the breaking point. Disease, dysentery, and sunstroke begins to claim more soldiers than Kushite arrows ever did. The morale of the invincible legion begins to crack. Finally, Petronius reaches Napata. This is the ancient holy city of Kush, the spiritual home of the god Amun. It is a city of temples and history. Petronius expects a final, glorious stand. He deploys his engines of war. He prepares for a siege. But the gates are open. Amanirenas has evacuated the city. She has sacrificed the cradle of her ancestors to save her people. She has withdrawn further south to Meroë, pulling the Romans deeper into the trap. Petronius is furious. He has marched through hell to fight a phantom. In a fit of calculated Roman cruelty, he orders Napata to be destroyed. The temples are smashed, the roofs are torched, the statues are toppled. He wants to send a message that Rome destroys what it cannot conquer. He stands in the ashes of the holy city and declares victory. He sends word back to Augustus that Kush is broken, but he is lying to himself. He looks at his men, gaunt, exhausted, their armor hanging loosely on their frames. He looks at the southern horizon toward Meroë. He knows that if he takes one more step south, he will never come back. The desert will swallow his entire army. Petronius turns around. He leaves a garrison at the fortress of Premnis, modern Qasr Ibrim, to hold the territory, and he retreats back to Egypt. He thinks he has taught the queen a lesson. He thinks the war is over. He is wrong. The moment the main Roman army leaves, the lioness returns. Amanirenas does not mourn the ashes of Napata. She uses them. She rallies her forces, now hardened by the conflict. She descends on the Roman garrison at Premnis with a fury that shocks the defenders. She lays siege to the fortress, trapping the Romans inside their own walls. Amanirenas prepares her true victory, a victory not of blood, but of memory, a psychological strike that will outlast the Roman Empire itself. We travel now to the royal city of Meroë. The queen stands before the Temple of Victory. She is a striking, terrifying figure. The bandage over her missing eye is a stark reminder of her sacrifice. Her remaining eye burns with a cold intelligence. She motions to her guards. They bring forward a heavy object wrapped in cloth. It is the trophy from the first raid at Siena. The cloth is pulled back to reveal the bronze head of Emperor Augustus. It is a masterpiece of Roman art. The eyes are inlaid with glass and calcite, giving it a haunting, lifelike stare. The hair is perfectly coiffed. The expression is one of calm, divine superiority. This is the face of the man who defeated Antony and Cleopatra. This is the face that citizens in Rome bow to in terror and adoration. In any other kingdom, a captured trophy like this would be placed on a high pedestal. It would be displayed in a museum or a palace, treated with the respect due to a worthy enemy. But Amanirenas does not respect Augustus. She despises him. She does not want to look up at him. She commands the high priests to dig. They do not dig a grave in the cemetery. They do not dig a pit in the treasury. They dig a hole directly in front of the staircase leading up to the temple, right in the threshold, in the dirt. The queen lifts the heavy bronze head. She looks into its glass eyes one last time. There is no ceremony of honor. There is only the silence of the desert wind. She drops the head into the hole. She positions it carefully. She places it face up. Augustus is staring at the sky, helpless. She orders the hole to be filled. The dirt is packed down. Then, heavy stone slabs are laid over it to form the steps of the temple entrance. The message is subtle, brutal, and permanent. From this day forward, every time a Kushite priest enters the temple to pray for victory, they will step on the head of Augustus. Every time the queen walks to the altar, she will trample the face of the Roman god. It is the ultimate ancient curse. In the culture of the Nile, to be under someone's foot is the position of the vanquished, the slave, the enemy. By burying him here, she is not hiding him. She is ritually killing his power, day after day, year after year. Petronius may have burned a city of stone, but Amanirenas has buried the soul of Rome. While Augustus sits in his marble palace in Italy, proclaiming himself the ruler of the known world, in the deep sands of Africa, he is a doormat. This secret remains buried for 2,000 years. Empires rise and fall. The sands shift. The location of the head is lost to time. Until 1910, British archaeologist John Garstang is excavating the ruins of Meroë. His workers are clearing the sand from the steps of an ancient temple. They pry up the stones of the threshold. And there, staring up at them from the darkness, are the golden glass eyes of Augustus. The head is perfectly preserved. The sand had protected it. But the context of its discovery shocks the archaeological world. It wasn't found in a place of honor. It was found in the dirt, under the feet of his enemies. It is the physical proof of Amanirenas' defiance. It is proof that while Rome may have written the history books, Kush wrote the final insult. Back in 24 BC, the war grinds on. The siege of Premnis drags into a stalemate. Petronius cannot advance. Amanirenas will not surrender. The queen realizes that she has pushed the superpower to a standstill. She has bled them. She has blinded them. She has humiliated their god. Now she is ready to talk. But she will not beg. She sends ambassadors to Petronius. The Roman general, exhausted and eager to leave this cursed land, tells them they must go to Caesar himself to negotiate peace. He gives them safe passage to the island of Samos, where Augustus is staying. Imagine the scene. A delegation of tall, dark-skinned Nubian diplomats dressed in leopard skins and gold, walking into the court of Augustus. They are surrounded by the marble splendor of Rome. They are surrounded by people who view them as barbarians. But they carry a letter from the one-eyed queen, and they carry a bundle of golden arrows. According to legend, the ambassadors present the arrows to Augustus. Their leader speaks. These arrows are a gift from the Candace. If you want peace, they are a token of friendship. If you want war, you will need them. The court holds its breath. This is an unparalleled insolence. No one speaks to Augustus this way and lives. Augustus looks at the arrows. He looks at the proud diplomats. He thinks of the reports from Petronius, the heat, the scorched earth, the unbreakable will of this queen who mutilated her own face to stay in the fight. He looks at the map of his empire, stretched thin from Spain to Syria. He realizes that Kush is not a prize. It is a hornet's nest. The emperor of the world makes a calculation. Is the gold of Kush worth the blood of 5 more legions? Is it worth fighting a woman who buries gods? Augustus stands. He hands the arrows back. He grants them everything. In a move that stunned the Roman Senate, Augustus agrees to a peace treaty that is almost unheard of in Roman history. He does not demand their surrender. He does not demand a hostage. He redraws the border, giving land back to Kush. He waives the tribute. Kush will pay 0 taxes to Rome. He withdraws his garrison from the frontier. It is a total diplomatic victory for Amanirenas. Most barbarian wars ended with the enemy king in chains, paraded through the streets of Rome before being strangled. Amanirenas ends her war on her throne in Meroë. She lost an eye. She lost a city, but she saved her civilization. The treaty signed in 21 BC holds. For the next 300 years, while Rome fights constant wars against Germans, Parthians, and Celts, the border with Kush remains quiet. Rome never tries to invade again. They trade, they coexist, they respect the line in the sand. Because they know that south of that line, there is a lioness who does not fear their eagles. As the years pass, Amanirenas grows old. The wound on her face heals into a scar of honor. She rebuilds her temples. She sees her kingdom flourish. And every day, until the day she dies, when she walks into the Temple of Victory to give thanks to her gods, she steps on the head of Augustus Caesar. She walks on the face of the man who owned the world, and she smiles. Years turn into decades. Augustus dies in 14 AD, declared a god by the Roman Senate. Temples are built to him across the Mediterranean. People burn incense to his divine spirit. But in Meroë, the god Augustus is still just a stepping stone. Every morning until her final breath, Amanirenas walks out of her palace. The African sun hits her face. She walks to the temple to pray to Apedemak, the lion god of war. She places her sandaled foot on the stone step. Underneath, in the dark, is the face of the emperor. She steps down hard. She feels the solid resistance of the earth. She enters the temple, a free woman, a queen who looked the apocalypse in the eye and made it blink. Most of history is written by the victors. The Romans wrote that they punished the Kushites and withdrew. They claimed a moral victory. But the sand knows the truth. The bronze head knows the truth. Rome didn't leave because they won. They left because they were beaten. In the end, Amanirenas didn't just defend her borders. She defended the idea that there are some things and some people that cannot be owned. She proved that iron and discipline are no match for a mother defending her home. She died as she lived, unbowed, unbroken, and unconquered. And while the statues of Augustus in Rome have long since crumbled or lost their heads to time and vandals, the head she buried remains safe, protected by the soil of Africa, waiting for 2,000 years to tell her story. The story of the lioness who broke the eagle. Time is the ultimate conqueror. It destroys empires. It turns marble to dust and iron to rust. It erases borders drawn in blood. The Roman Empire, for all its glory, eventually fell. Its legions vanished. Its aqueducts crumbled. The language of Latin slowly dissolved into the Romance tongues of Europe. Even the gods of Rome, Jupiter, Mars, and the divine Augustus, faded into mythology, replaced by new faiths and new idols. But in the desert of Sudan, something remained. The pyramids of Meroë still stand today. They are steep, sharp, and defiant, piercing the blue African sky. They are the silent witnesses to a civilization that Rome could not break. They rise from the dunes like jagged teeth, reminding the world that here, on this ground, the legion stopped. For 2,000 years, the wind has blown over the grave of Amanirenas. Her palace is gone. Her body is lost to the sands. But her victory was not written on paper. It was written in the earth itself. In 1910, when the British archaeologist John Garstang unburied the bronze head of Augustus, he didn't just find an artifact. He found a punchline to a 2-millennium-old joke. The head now sits in the British Museum in London. Tourists walk past it every day. They see the calm, golden eyes of the first Roman emperor. They see the craftsmanship of a superpower. They see a beautiful object of art. But look closer. If you look at the eyes of that statue, you are looking at the face of a man who was held captive by the earth of Africa. For 20 centuries, while his empire rose and fell, while the world changed around him, Augustus was staring up into the darkness, pressed beneath the feet of a Nubian queen. He wanted to be worshipped. She made him part of the pavement. History is often told as a story of the big crushing the small. It is told as the inevitable march of technology and empire. But the story of the one-eyed queen breaks that rule. It teaches us that power is not just about the size of your army or the strength of your steel. It is about the ferocity of your will. It is about what you are willing to sacrifice. Amanirenas gave her eye to save her people. She gave her son to the war. She gave her life to the defense of her home. And in return, she gained immortality. She reminds us that even when the sky is dark with arrows and the ground shakes with the march of 1,000 legions, one person standing in the right place with enough courage can stop the world. Rome had the Senate. Rome had the gold. Rome had the gods. Kush had the lioness. Augustus Caesar called himself the son of God. But to Amanirenas, he was just a floor mat. She lost an eye, but she never lost her kingdom. This has been the true history of Amanirenas and the kingdom of Kush. One of the greatest stories never told. Until now. If this story moved you, if it taught you something you didn't know, if it changed the way you think about the ancient world, share it. Because this is a story that deserves to be remembered. Amanirenas made sure of that. She buried her message 2,000 years ago. And the world is only now beginning to dig it up.